One is very crazy when in love. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. Love and work, work and love, that's all there is. We are never as defenseless against suffering as when we love. By abolishing private property, one deprives the human love of aggression. In the development of mankind as a whole, just as in individuals, love alone acts as the civilizing factor in the sense that it brings a change from egoism to altruism. The very emphasis of the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," makes it certain that we are descended from an endlessly long chain of generations of murderers whose love of murder was in their blood, as it perhaps is also in ours. The communal life of human beings had a twofold foundation: the compulsion to work, which was created by external necessity, and the power of love. The primitive stages can always be re-established. The primitive mind is, in the fullest meaning of the word, imperishable. It is always possible to bind together a considerable number of people in love, so long as there are other people left over to receive the manifestations of their aggressiveness. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is, what does a woman want? He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. The intention that man should be happy is not in the plan of creation. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Where does a thought go when it is forgotten? The ego is not master in its own house. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. Experience teaches us that the world is not a nursery. Future ages will produce further great advances in this realm of culture, probably inconceivable now, and will increase man's likeness to a god still more. It is impossible to escape the impression that people commonly use false standards of measurement. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. It is that we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object or its love. Religion is an attempt to get control over the sensory world, in which we are placed by means of the wish world, which we have developed inside us as a result of biological and psychological necessities. He does not believe that does not live according to his belief. The ego represents what we call reason and sanity, in contrast to the id, which contains the passions. The functional importance of the ego is manifested in the fact that normally control over the approaches to motility devolves upon it. There is no doubt that the resistance of the conscious and unconscious ego operates under the sway of the pleasure principle. When making a decision of minor importance, I have always found it advantageous to consider all the pros and cons. Everywhere I go, I find a poet has been there before me. Towards the outside, at any rate, the ego seems to maintain clear and sharp lines of demarcation. Religion is a system of wishful illusions together with a disavowal of reality. Life as we find it is too hard for us. It brings us too many pains, disappointments, and impossible tasks. In the depths of my heart, I can't help being convinced that my dear fellow men, with a few exceptions, are worthless. Dreams may be thus stated. They are concealed realizations of repressed desires. Neurotics complain of their illness, but they make the most of it, and when it comes to taking it away from them, they will defend it like a lioness her young. At the height of being in love, the boundary between ego and object threatens to melt away. Words are capable of arousing the strongest emotions and prompting all men's actions. The ego refuses to be distressed by the provocations of reality, to let itself be compelled to suffer. We are what we are because we have been what we have been. The pleasure of satisfying a savage instinct, undomesticated by the ego, is incomparably much more intense than the one of satisfying a tamed instinct. In mourning, it is the world which has become poor and empty. In melancholia, it is the ego itself. One might compare the relation of the ego to the id with that between a rider and his horse. It is easy to see that the ego is that part of the id which has been modified by the direct influence of the external world. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or the other, and to a greater or lesser extent. Analysis does not set out to make pathological reactions impossible, but to give the patient's ego freedom to decide one way or another. Children are completely egoistic. They feel their needs intensely and strive ruthlessly to satisfy them. The repressed merges into the id as well and is merely a part of it. Originally, the ego includes everything. Later, it detaches from itself the external world. The ideas so far produced are insufficient for the interpretation of the dream. Self-deception is a plant which withers fast in the pellucid atmosphere of dream investigation. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. The scope of one's personality is defined by the magnitude of that problem which is capable of driving a person out of his wits. Before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, make sure that you're not surrounded by fools. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. Immorality, no less than morality, has at all times found support in religion. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. One thing about human beings puzzles me the most is their conscious effort to be connected with the object of their affection, even if it kills them slowly within. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. Religion is an illusion, and it derives its strength from the fact that it falls in with our instinctual desires. Men are more moral than they think, and far more immoral than they can imagine. The madman is a dreamer awake. Beauty has no obvious use, nor is there any clear cultural necessity for it, yet civilization could not do without it.